Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Rackspace Office Hours. My name is Alan Bush. I'm right here with Drew Cox.
Hey, everybody.
We're broadcasting live from the Castle. It's Rackspace's headquarters here in San Antonio, Texas. Today, we've got a really good show set up for you. We've got a couple of guests joining us to talk about Rackspace Private Cloud powered by Red Hat. So we've got the open source cloud solution, and we've got one of the leaders of open source software coming together to do something that's better than the sum of the parts.
Absolutely.
So we're really excited to have our guests joining us. Let's go ahead and introduce them real quick. We'll start with Dan Shepard, our guest. He's a racker joining us from Austin, I think. Right, Dan?
Correct. I'm up in Austin today, so I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad to have you. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here at Rackspace?
Sure. So I'm a 3-year racker, and since joining Rackspace, I've been really focused on solving cloud usage for enterprises. And most recently, I've spent the last 18 months or so working on building the Rackspace Private Cloud powered by Red Hat offer.
Well, great. I'm really excited to see a little bit more about it. And you mentioned this is Rackspace Private Cloud, but it's powered by Red Hat. And so we brought in one of our friends from Red Hat to explain a little bit more to us. So Drew Brannon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for including me in the conversation.
Great. Well, yeah, we're absolutely happy to have you. It's might be our first true Drew show. It's going to get a little confusing.
I'm fine.
No.
With one of these
You can't get enough Drew in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not possible.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, hey, thanks for joining us. And tell us a little bit about what you do at Red Hat.
Sure. I've been with Red Hat a little over 10 years now. And seeing a good change with the company. When I started, we had about 1,700 employees, and now we're over 9,000. So it's been a good ride. Actually, I guess we're getting pretty close to 10,000, I think. But anyway, specifically my role with Red Hat is managing the partner relationship with Rackspace. Mm-hmm. I've been working with other service providers over the last few years, but this year I had the opportunity to work with Dan and team to expand the relationship we have with you guys, and it's been a great ride so far.
Well, this is really the beginning of This is the culmination or the current state of this long-standing relationship Rackspace has had with Red Hat. We go way, way back, as it were, and so you get to have that lineage as part of your relationship. A lot of that background that the two companies have in common, and then this new product is something that we get to experience now as a culmination of a lot of that. So how about you guys talk about where we've come from in the relationship of Red Hat and Rackspace, and then maybe we'll go from there into this specific reality.
So we've had a partnership with Red Hat for over 10 years now. And a little known fact about that is Red Hat was one of the early investors in Rackspace when we got our start a number of years ago. So we've been building a relationship since pretty much the beginning. And with that, we've been staffing and building expertise around Red Hat Enterprise Linux since we started hosting workloads. So at this point, we have almost 200 Red Hat certifications on staff. And with those certifications, we're able to cover really almost the entire technology stack for Red Hat.
Yeah, we have a lot of certifications. I think that right now, right across the hall from our studio, we have our RACU, our learning solutions that we have, and there's always RHCE, RHCSA class going on there. So we do, like you said, we've got a very, very long and deep relationship there, and continuing to learn. And all rackers are learners, and getting that great Red Hat certification is one of the ways that they do it.
Yeah, I think you guys are, outside of Red Hat, I think you guys have the largest population of Red Hat certified engineers on the planet. I also think that you have I'm trying to remember there are a couple of other statistics. I think you have the largest Red Hat satellite deployment that's going, I guess, with a single satellite server that's controlling it. So there's been a long history of our two companies working together with technology and training and all that kind of thing.
So a couple of a decade ago when we first started this, we're looking at things like our customers running their applications with Red Hat, Red Hat Enterprise Linux as their operating system. But now we've actually scaled that up to include the OpenStack component of that. So let's talk a little bit about that and kind of how that got started.
Yeah, so 20 months or so ago, Rackspace and Red Hat got together at the castle, and we were talking through kind of what we were seeing in the market for OpenStack and how we could kind of reignite some of our partnership. We had been doing it for a long time, and just there was an opportunity there to come back and say, let's make our partnership bigger and let's do something meaningful with the technology and the products that are out there today. And as we sat down and started walking through that, OpenStack was really a place that we felt like there was a great opportunity, specifically on private clouds, where we have our community-based private cloud offer, but there are a number of customers out there who value the software assurance and the support that you get from Red Hat. And really, we felt like that model and Red Hat's way of delivering that support worked really well with our Fanatical Support offering and the way that we manage private clouds. So that was the place where we dove in and really drove to create this product offering.
It's one of those things that we really probably should have done a long time ago, to tell you the truth. Red Hat's been investing heavily in OpenStack for, 4 or 5 years now. I don't know that exact history, but, something in that range. I mean, not long after you guys, created the open source, communities out there, all of a sudden, Red Hat realized what the opportunity was there, and we started, investing heavily in the communities. And so honestly, it's good that we are where we are and we have this combined solution, but, we probably should have gotten there sooner, but that's okay. Dan and I are working to make sure that the market understands what the power is of this offer.
And it does feel like a natural outcropping of the direction that both companies would have normally taken and then collaborated towards. There's a huge proponent of OpenStack and of open source technologies on both sides. And so to see those two groups collaborate where they have already been collaborating on other solutions around open source really kind of is a no-brainer and feels like, well, yeah, of course this is a thing. Why is this a new announcement? Why are we talking about these new opportunities when it really feels like this is just the way it should have always been, and it really speaks to the culture of both companies.
Right. Yeah. Dan and I usually refer to it as peanut butter and chocolate, right, Dan?
That's right. And to your point, this kind of feels like the way it should have always been. It goes back to those early days when we were just offering dedicated servers in the Rackspace data centers, and we were leading customers through adoption of Red Hat Enterprise Linux at a time when it wasn't considered mainstream. So when you look at today's OpenStack world, and we have enterprises that are trying to figure out how to adopt OpenStack with that same level of complexity, they think back and they remember to the time of Red Hat Enterprise Linux adoption and what that felt like and how Rackspace was able to come in and be that managed partner to get them over that hump. So
there's definitely trusted brands there. There's two groups that when you think of how am I going to execute in an open source technology ecosystem, come to mind pretty quickly and have that track record and pedigree, and to think, where do I go now with technology? Cloud is one of those things that's usually front of mind. And so when you get this nexus of these different components, it makes a lot of sense. Let's talk a little bit about what the offering is. I mean, we've said it's Red Hat Enterprise Linux, it's OpenStack, it's a combination of Rackspace support and Red Hat. What does the product itself look like, and how does the customer get good value out of it?
Absolutely. So when we built the product, we worked with Red Hat to define a reference architecture that was scalable, sustainable, and would ultimately grow with customers. So we were looking to build a reliable OpenStack deployment that was ready for production workloads. To do that, we went with a 3-node control plane and then added Ceph or any shared storage offering on to back up object and block storage, as well as allow us to run ephemeral storage for the local computes. So when we did this, it gave us a way to build this scalable reference architecture. We combined physical load balancers instead of running HA proxy off of the control plane, which allowed us to have better support experience and give customers more assurance that their cloud wasn't going to fall over from traffic.
So it's really taking the opinionation of both organizations running large environments for lots of customers. It's taking hardware expertise that Rackspace has, and we could do HA proxy if you want, but we really think that there's value in this dedicated approach. We do this all the time. Let us help you with it. And then Red Hat saying, this is the technology suite. This is the best of breed approach to using these technologies. And we've seen customers have success doing it this way. So you're taking these two long-tailed, experience-driven approaches, and as they blend together, you're getting this solution that, as you said, really lands with a lot of stability and growth potential there. And that's stability is really what people want when they're talking about their IT infrastructure. You want to be able to have a solution that stands up and can do its thing whenever it's called upon. And in a global world, it's called upon increasingly often and from everywhere and with various loads. So you've got a lot of things to think about. And sounds like when you're coming to this product, you're coming to a product that's been thought about from those angles, and you're going to get the value of that experience.
Absolutely. When we built the reference architecture and started walking through kind of what it looks like, we thought through, okay, we're going to have customers who already have a NetApp or EMC device in their network that they want to keep. So we need to make sure we solve for a way that allows them to bring in those other certified technologies that they've been running to date and just apply them to their new cloud. So from the networking tier, load balancing, storage, all of them, it's about leveraging Red Hat's large partner network and certification network to say, if you've gone through the Red Hat certification process and your hardware's there, then you can pull it into this solution and be ready to go right out of the box.
Yeah, it's about answering the questions that the enterprises ask for, right? I mean, they want, as you said, Drew, it's something that, they want things that are going to be stable. They want something they can grow with over time as their business changes and evolves. And I think that that's what this partnership really brings is, that approach where two companies that have been at this for a really long time are able to evolve and along with the customer and, kind of take that technology path with them.
You're mentioning a lot of this. We have momentum, we have gear, we have this approach, and we're moving in the direction that we think makes for a good partnership. Are there any key factors that really highlight a company that, or a project maybe, that would be an ideal fit for this type of solution?
Dan, I'm sure you have some thoughts too. I think there are a lot of different. There are a lot of places where this would be a good fit, so we don't want to exclude anybody.
Sure.
By the same token, I think customers that need help in their path. I mean, there are plenty of people who want to go out and do it themselves, right? At that DIY type approach to OpenStack. I mean, that's the beauty of open source, right? And that's how Red Hat's continued to have this brand over time, is that we recognize there are people who do want to do it themselves. They're okay with, truly, if you will, rolling your own Linux, right? I feel OpenStack is kind of very similar to that. And, once you're ready to have, a support organization that's behind you and an engineering team that's behind you, I think you end up with a solution that fits a lot of different places. But in particular, it's those customers that are either on, say, a legacy private cloud or on-premise environment that are ready to then start taking advantage of cloud technologies that, something like an OpenStack represents, or people who have had a bad experience with OpenStack in, say, a lab environment or a test environment and are ready to, take a look at, how you go to an enterprise workload. So I guess the short answer that I'll get to is a lot of those companies that are cutting edge from a technology perspective, but also need enterprise reliability, are the sweet spot. So thinking financial services, maybe oil and gas, telco, those are places where we're seeing a lot of uptick in interest right away. But, Dan, you might agree. I think we've seen, all kinds of different customers as we've been talking about this solution over the last 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, just to add to that, there's a few things that happen that lead a company to say a managed private cloud is the right solution for me. The first is they, for whatever reason, they don't have a comfort with public cloud as their solution right now, and that could be applications that aren't ready, that could be security problems, that could be compliance. There's a number of reasons why they're not ready to go to that public cloud space. And as they look at that, they're saying, okay, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't have infrastructure delivered as a service. And if I don't provide something like that, my developers are really going to not be able to be as competitive or innovate as fast as I need them to, because I'm not giving them the tools that they need today.
Well, so you end up with a situation where they go and get it themselves, and you end up with the problems you're trying to avoid anyway, and it's clandestine, and so you got to sort that out.
Shadow IT. So as they make that leap and say, okay, I need to offer an infrastructure as a service offering in my own data center so I can avoid those problems, the question becomes, well, do I want to take on all the burden of keeping that API available? When you think about public cloud, it's just there. It's ready for you. If you need compute, you go call an API and your compute is delivered to you. When you apply that to a private cloud, that's a whole team of people responsible for just keeping those APIs there. And oftentimes it's not in the best interest of the organization to invest in that place, nor is it something where they necessarily feel like they have talent in-house to be able to bridge that gap. So that's where a managed offer comes in. We not only can we come in and help you get your cloud up and running and off the ground, we're there to continue to operate it for you past deployment. So we really become your partner in the operator part of the DevOps model.
I think that speaks to the roll your own community that likes to have the control and the experience and the sweat equity into the product. Like, we built this thing. They're also in a competitive environment where pace is important, and being able to get something from early stage to production ready very quickly. Bringing in that management partner can really help speed up that process, or just use their resources better. We've got a team of people that if we sent to training and we got certified and everything, sure, they could do it, but they're already certified in these other places where they're able to deliver value. Let's have a partner come in and deliver these components that would take longer for us to get up to speed on, or something along those lines, so that their product is ready to go more quickly, that their environment is stood up more quickly, so that, like you mentioned, the APIs are available and you're not siphoning off resources that are valuable doing another thing to manage and maintain that component of a solution. And so pace becomes a really big piece of this conversation also, when you've got people with deadlines to hit and limited resources.
I think that's right. I think Dan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there. The other thing, I think the other way you want to look at it too, though, is that sometimes customers want to, standardize on a platform for a while. They don't want to necessarily have to be, knowing about the OpenStack community and how often new releases come out. Sometimes enterprises need to stay on a release for a while. Same thing with RHEL, right, or Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That you don't necessarily want to move from one version to another on the requirement of Red Hat, right? You need to do what happens based on the ISV community and what they allow for, supported versions, things like that. And I think OpenStack falls in the same vein.
I agree. When you look at how enterprises are consuming technology, it's landing on a technology choice and implementing that technology typically for a span of years. And having a managed offer like our private cloud offer gives them that ability to deploy and have a production ready workload right off the bat, but also takes a lot of the worry out of, well, what does this mean when I need to do an upgrade? How often do I have to upgrade? How do I manage my my life cycle of my applications and still meet my internal stakeholders' obligations around keeping applications up and running for a certain amount of time and things like that. And really, our operational expertise at Rackspace is great at walking them through what that would look like and how do you overcome those challenges as you adopt a technology like OpenStack.
I think it also speaks to the repeatability. I think when we talk about a lot of these technology tools, a lot of the newer cloud options, it's automation so you can have a repeatable environment. Well, a company who's going to deploy something once for the long term, it's something that's inherently not going to need to be repeatable for them. They're going to do it the one time, hopefully do it right and roll forward. But when you bring in a partner who has done this repeatedly, then you get the value of something that is repeatable, because you mentioned that in the build out and in the architecture of these solutions, you're working alongside with Red Hat and saying, this is the best way to do this. And then we practice implementing this on every other customer that gets in the game with the Red Hat OpenStack offering. And so we have those reps, and you get the value of a very repeatable process without having to have a lot of practice rounds before you finally execute your production environment. You're getting that repeatability without having to do the repetition yourself. We're getting people who have the repetition, have the experience in the reps implementing a solution that's relatively complicated and well-founded based on the lessons learned that have come from everybody else who's tried it.
Sounds like you agree.
I agree. My mute button disappeared, but I agree.
It's the slipperiest button there is.
Yeah, I think that also ties into the value of the partnership, right? I mean, both of our organizations understand support. You guys with your Fanatical Support, but Red Hat has built a business around supporting customers in open source. Combine that with the fact that we're okay at writing software, pretty good at writing software, but we're not necessarily good at operating software, but you guys are. So again, it's back to that peanut butter and chocolate, right? Where you guys being the operator to help customers, make this thing truly perform, and us, being the software vendor, it really does make a good partnership, I think.
It's an experience multiplier. We've seen a lot of things in a specific category. You've seen a lot of things in a related category, and we all have a large enough customer base that our combined lessons learned really reach across a lot of different businesses, a lot of different types of solutions, a lot of different needs. And so because we have seen so many and solved so many problems, when two companies with the pedigree that we have come together, you're really getting a huge multiplier on the value of that product that you're buying.
Right. And to me, the game changer is that you guys can deploy it both on premise with the customer or in your data centers or in a third party location. That, I mean, now all of a sudden we're not, the customer is not bound by a particular set of four walls, right? I just think that's huge for us.
Yeah, we hear the multi-cloud conversation being the one that really picks up pace. And we're talking about organizations that are often large enough to have their own multi-cloud solution where they have multiple data centers with multiple deployments. And you can get into I want Rackspace to be able to touch gear and have part of my deployment there. And I want to have solutions that I have in-house where I can touch gear. And that does things to allow people who's normally have a beeper or some sort of terrible hook into them when they're on vacation and got a 24-hour cycle that they have to respond to all the alerts. When you have a partner that can go and grab some solutions and help engage in a problem, that really helps your staffing from that standpoint. And you can have Rackspace jump in and address some issues, which is huge.
Drew said beeper. It's been a few years since he's been on call rotation.
It's just the nightmares that I have. My beeper going off is a sad terrible thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct. When you think about how we've solved these problems over the years, and what the experience used to be like for administrators and operators of traditional technology, and you look at what we're able to do with cloud platforms and the ability to create automated workload deployments and handle things like fault tolerance through software instead of hardware, there's some really great options out there that when you combine it with an expert supporting you and operating your cloud, you do get that freedom back that you haven't had in years, even back to the age of beepers.
I'm going to have that nightmare again tonight, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I think we remember that.
Yeah, I expect that every time someone talks to Drew now, we bring up beepers.
I'll walk right into it.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about some of the thought that went into choosing, where you made the software changes, where you made the hardware changes, and kind of why you chose some of the different types of hardware over software, software over hardware? Talk a little bit more in depth about that.
Yeah. So we'll start with deployment. We leverage Red Hat Director, which is built off of RDO Manager, which is a community project that uses O and Ironic. We selected that as our deployment tool early on for this build because in using it, we're able to take bare metal that's sitting on a Pixie boot screen and start the deployment straight from there. So for us to build out a cloud anywhere in the world, we need hardware on a Pix boot screen, and we need one server with RHEL on it. And if we have that, we can go build a cloud. So we install Director on that first node, and once we have Director up and running, we're able to use Ironic and O inside of Director to spin up the control plane and then all the underlying hypervisors for the compute nodes. The the compute nodes and the control plane are your typical dual proc hardware running various amounts of memory depending on what your requirements are, and really not much local storage at all on the compute nodes. On the infrastructure nodes, we typically fill up the bays for your storage because we're going to run things like the databases for Galera, and on down the road as we look to add features like Ceilometer, the Mongo database Tabaxelometer would reside there. And then you have your Director node, which really, once you deploy, becomes Rackspace's management node to manage your cloud. What makes that a little bit unique and different is when upgrades come out or patches come out, they're available in Red Hat Satellite, we pull those into Director, and then Director manages the upgrade of itself and all the things underneath it. So we can bring the Director node down without any impact to the cloud. So we'll bring it down, we'll update it to the latest version of OpenStack, bring it back up, and then it will go in and start shifting workload off of compute nodes so that it can bring them out of rotation and upgrade them, which we're not going to get into the weeds on this, but that alone is a big step forward in OpenStack and the way that you manage an OpenStack upgrade.
It's huge for stability. I mean, to be able to continue to roll forward as you're making these changes instead of full stop, we're going to do all this work. Okay, now you have access back to the things that you need to do your business, the rest of the company.
That's not cloud.
Yeah, that doesn't work so well.
Yes, and that's why we started the solution there. And it's funny you mentioned that. We just recently ran the customers through upgrades from OpenStack Platform 8 to 9. We announced support for it, I believe, a week ago. And when we did so, in our testing and in our implementation, we were able to upgrade customers with no outage to their running guests or their tenants, and I believe a 30-second outage to the API tier. So for 30 seconds, you weren't able to make a request to your cloud, but all your workload stayed running the entire time.
A 30-second maintenance window is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
We were very pleased with it.
The customers were very pleased with it as well.
Yeah.
So once we get past that, the other part of this offer that I really want to make sure that we highlight and talk about in a little bit of detail is the way we do testing at Rackspace and Red Hat. So when once we launched the product, we realized that there was an opportunity for us to improve our partnership. So we had been working together on by connecting our engineers, connecting our support folks, connecting our product teams to share roadmaps. And then once we launched, we realized, we should connect our QA teams and start the conversation there as well, and try to get to a point where we're operating more in a CI/CD fashion. So Red Hat had a product that they were already working on called Distributed Continuous Integration. And they brought that to us, and we sat down and we started talking through it and found that we could use this Distributed Continuous Integration tool to create a lab inside of a Rackspace data center that runs all the test cases that are important to Rackspace, which is about 1,500 test cases, just to give you an idea of how many tests we run when we build this. And we could run those 1,500 test cases in this continuous integration environment, and Red Hat could deploy code to that environment all the way down to their hourly builds. So now we've been able to get all that set up and in place. Now we have an environment inside of Rackspace where Red Hat code is automatically deployed to it, and then once it's deployed, our Rackspace specific test cases that highlight some of the key usage patterns for our customers run automatically to validate that solution and make sure that it's going to continue to work for our customers. And then if there is a problem with that daily build, the tool actually goes in and creates the bug with Red Hat to get it fixed. So before the code ever launches, we've had hours of stick time with that new build. Our tool has been running for typically 2 months, running QA tests and providing feedback into the cycle for Red Hat. So when that code gets announced, we have a great comfort that it's going to meet the needs of our customers and it's not going to break anything.
Well, that's great. Being able to have that confidence, really allows us to distribute a product that's we know is going to work for our customers and get that out there when we're certain it is. And I'm kind of interested on this. We're talking about product, and I'm kind of interested on the delineation here because this is a product with a service offering as well. So can you tell us a little bit about where those two kind of blend together and kind of the differences between the product and the service?
Absolutely. So I view my product as the service offering we're able to provide on top of Red Hat's technology. So I work very closely with our customers and our support team to understand what they're trying to solve for as far as use cases and challenges. And hearing from them and where those gaps are, I drive that back to the support team and talk about creative ways to solve those problems and where technology has an opportunity to solve those issues as opposed to manually. Once we have those conversations, it becomes pretty obvious pretty quick where Red Hat could step in and do work inside their product to improve it, or where we can work together to build stuff in community and get it upstream to maybe improve OpenStack as a whole, so that we get across that solution. An example of that would be when we first started working on our product, we found that I kind of touched on it earlier, but load balancing was being done in the control plane, and that was because of the way that Red Hat's deployment tooling was working was set up at the time. So we said, listen, here's what we've seen in our millions of hours of running OpenStack. When you run a load balancer in the control plane, you create a potential for a bottleneck that could impact the availability of your cloud if you have too much traffic coming over the load balancer. What we're completely fine with HA proxy. It's just where it lives, we want to change that. And as we started talking with Red Hat, it was, well, just so that the cloud doesn't really care about the load balancer. Instead of being concerned that, hey, it's HA proxy and where it got deployed, the cloud can just expect an external load balancer. And we're like, that's great. That solves our customer issue of choice, right? We want to give them the choice in what they're using for load balancing technology, be it HA proxy, be it an F5, be it whatever they want to choose, they get that choice back. And that's where we were able to sit down from a product standpoint and say, okay, so this is why we want to get there. This is what the customer expects. Now let's start figuring out how do we divvy up the work and whose engineers start building this code so that we get to that point.
Dan, I'm glad you brought up choice. That was the first thing that came to my mind. With the question of, is it a product or is it a service, or how do the two kind of flow together? Red Hat's perspective since I've been with the company has always been that that technology is sort of the means to the end, right? But it's the customer's flexibility to choose what works for them based on their requirements for security and uptime and compliance and those kinds of factors that make it both, right? It is a technology, but it's also a solution, and the two I think are intertwined very closely. That we Red Hat are providing new technology over time that Rackspace is able to consume through things like what we were talking about with ECI. I think makes the partnership work really well. But also, you all have a similar perspective that at some level, the technology is intertwined with the solution or with the service. It's how you guys provide your Fanatical support, right? I mean, that's kind of the core of what you do, and to me, that's where, again, this product lines up really well between the companies.
I'm curious if you'll be able to talk about some of the delineation between providing a customer with choice and saying, we see spots where customers want to bring in an F5 and want to have this dedicated load balancing option up front. We also see the value in that and the stability gains and the some of the specifics around why that might be. But we're also providing a product where we have opinionated approaches that say there's a lot of options out there, but this is what we're going to use for this because it's the best and because it's going to deliver consistently and because we can support it. So can you talk a little bit about where we look for places where choice is paramount and where we make decisions and elections just based on the experience that we have that, yes, there are options, but this is what we're doing here because we've seen it work out far better for our customers than the alternatives?
Absolutely. One of the keys of all of our managed products is we've applied our hours of expertise and all the different permeations we've seen to build reference architecture and create deployments that are supportable, scalable, sustainable, with paramount in that being it's going to work for the customer, right? So when we go down that path, we can look at some of the projects out on the horizon in OpenStack and say, hey, some of these may be things that we could enable from a technology standpoint, but from a Rackspace's point of view of we're building clouds for customers to operate their production infrastructure, you may not want to enable those yet. And it, we can pick one of the technologies that might be worth picking on that's kind of out there in the community right now is Noki. Noki is coming along nicely in the community, but at this point, I don't think anyone would say it's fully baked for production. Now, in the next release of OpenStack, it will get even closer. We're anxious to get in and play with it and see where we end up there. But it is an example of a project that is coming through maturity, and at some point in the near future, will likely land on the roadmap of Red Hat, likely land on the roadmap of Rackspace, and it'll be about figuring out, okay, what do we need this project to be able to do in order to know that it's going to be ready for a customer? So we continually work together to kind of look through that. And one of the places that we've seen kind of our variance from customer choice into, hey, this is a best practice thing that Rackspace has learned, is how we deploy our compute hosts. So when you go out onto a Rackspace Private Cloud powered by Red Hat offer, and you want to run a guest, the only option is to back that guest up with shared storage. So Ceph, maybe Ceph is your choice. So you've selected Ceph as your storage platform. You go out, you deploy your workload. The only way that you're going to build out that workload is running off Ceph. And the reason for that is the stability it gives you to your guests once you've made that deployment. If we want to go back to that upgrade example earlier, we're ready to do that upgrade. We don't want an impact to the customer. Being able to shift workloads from one hypervisor, take that hypervisor down and upgrade it is important to keeping that workload running. So because we made this decision that there wasn't going to be any on-node ephemeral storage, it was all going to be done from Ceph, we're now able to do this without an impact to the customer. And it's having that foresight of, this is why we engineered it this way, so that when we got to that experience, maybe it's 6 months down the road, you didn't run into that problem.
And that all comes from the experience, the pain points that we've seen that our customers have brought back to us. And then we're able to have that same sort of relationship back to Red Hat and say, here are the things that we're seeing, and here's some of the pain points we can bring back to you. This goes back to your QA conversation. We're able to collaborate towards a generally better offering instead of one of us going it alone.
Absolutely.
Everybody is working together, right? So as we learn something from our production public cloud environment, some of that learning can go into OpenStack upstream, and then that matriculates down to the different variants of public or private cloud that we have. So it's a great relationship that's working in all directions.
Right. We get to kind of be coaches, right? I mean, we've had experience. We know which plays work in certain situations, and that's what we're recommending to our customers, and that's what the enterprises expect from us, both Red Hat and Rackspace.
Great. All right, guys. Well, hey, we're right up at the end of our time here. Thank you both for joining us. We really appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day to join us here. Before we do go, I do want to give you the chance to tell anybody that's watching where they can find more information and how they can get started with a Rackspace Private Cloud powered by Red Hat.
Absolutely. So the Rackspace website, if you go out to rackspace.com and look under the private cloud section, you will find several different types of private cloud. Under OpenStack, you'll see our Rackspace Private Cloud powered by Red Hat offer.
So just go to that area and you'll have a contact information there?
Sure. I could give the URL, but it's long with a bunch of slashes. And
sure thing. We'll throw in the show notes.
Google's pretty trusty.
There you go. Or if somebody wants to tweet one of the two of us, I mean, we've had both of our tags, then that'd be a way that they can get in touch with us, and we can make sure that we can answer their questions or put them in touch with the appropriate contacts on each side.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just throwing you out there on your own.
It's okay. And if you're going to be at the OpenStack Summit next month in Barcelona, I'll be there as well. I believe I'm going to have a speaking session where we're going to be talking a little bit more about distributed continuous integration. So,
very cool.
And we're on a bit of a roadshow otherwise, where you'll see us in various cities along the way over the next, say, 6 months. So, please come out and visit us if you're at an event where you see us.
We'll come to you.
That's fine too.
All right. Well, hey, thanks again, both of you, for taking the time to join us today. For those watching, we do this every week, every Thursday at about 1 o'clock Central Time. We'll be back again next week with our next show, and we hope to see you all then. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.